We're joined by Mike Glenn today from the Washington Times. Mike, you've been covering the war in Ukraine, all things Pentagon. What are you seeing?
Well, today the Secretary of Defense Austin is in Brussels for the latest meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, while the different countries that have joined together to support Ukraine militarily. I think there will be more supplies of weapons that the NATO countries are sending them. And and we are obviously there. The U.S. is obviously leading the way. We just have another tranche of weapons that have been ordered, including 16 more HIMARS, the high artillery, the rocket system that really has been decisive on the battlefield.
Sure.
Ukraine obviously has been making has been advancing on a lot of fronts, which I think a lot of people think has surprised a lot of people, both in the Kremlin and frankly in the Pentagon. And at least initially, Russia has responded. Ukraine probably took out, or at least temporarily took out the bridge. It was the Kerch Strait Bridge that was connecting Russia with Crimea.
So that was like Russia a major supply line. The bridge.
Yeah, it was. It was not. I mean, it was a major supply line. It was also a sort of a sign of Russia's sort of power over Crimea. That was an indication of it. It was it's the longest span bridge in Europe, 19 miles. But Russia has responded to this attack by shooting
missile attack, right?
Missile conventional attacks across Ukraine.
But those were very inaccurate or something.
No, utterly, completely non-accurate unless they were intending to hit playgrounds and apartment buildings. But their reaction has been, I mean, it's a sign of, it does look like sort of a sign of desperation.
Sure.
They want to hit some,
It seemed more like you're trying to fight, you're doing that strike for political means to, shore up people on your side saying that, no, we're still committed to this rather than actual, like military targets. And that seems like a terrible situation to be in.
From history that striking civilian targets does not tend to, weaken your enemy. It tends to embolden them and make them more determined to win. And that does seem to be the case there in Ukraine. It doesn't seem to have any kind of a negative effect on the population's desire to continue on, standing up to the Russian invasion.
What about this major conscription order that's gone out? The Russians are mobilized. Little slip there.
It's not that much of a Freudian slip to say the Soviets. But yeah, I mean, Vladimir Putin sort of sold this war to the Russian people by saying it would be they didn't call it a war, they called it a special military operation, say it would all be handled by sort of the standing army, the professionals. They wouldn't need to bring the population into it. But that has proven to be a sort of an empty boast because the Russian professionals who were leading the initial invasion have failed. So they are having to call up the conscripts, and that has proven to be extremely unpopular in Russia, and has sparked public demonstrations. And public demonstrations in Russia are a pretty rare occasion because the authorities, especially during the Soviet times and nowadays, they tend to crack down pretty heavily.
Yeah, we've all seen that.
Done in this case. But the fact that it is, they're protesting because now they can find them, even the ones who had no interest in the military themselves are finding themselves liable for call-up. And it's caused a lot of dissatisfaction in Russia. We're waiting to, the fact their training is minimal, a week, maybe two at best. Which is an indication that their effectiveness on the battlefield will be minimal as well. The Ukrainians, I don't think a lot of people realize this. We in the West, the U.S. and NATO countries, have been training them for several years before the invasion, to fight in sort of the NATO Western style, which is very decentralized, which relies on combined arms training. So sort of like fight the way we fight. And Russia continues to fight the way they fought in the Soviet Union, very top down, no initiative on the part of its troops, and we're seeing, in Ukraine, we're seeing how these armies are matching up, and the Ukrainians aren't just beating them because they have better equipment. That's obviously a part of it. They're beating them because they have better tactics. And they learn these tactics from the West.
You were stationed in Germany during the Cold War. Is this kind of what are we kind of seeing what they predicted, if the Soviets had come over the Fulda Gap or something? Is this kind of what they predicted it would have looked like, what we're seeing play out in Ukraine right now?
Yeah. We all thought, all those of us who were soldiers in the former West Germany, when there were two Germanys, we all, sort of feared, a lot of us, that this sort of overwhelming Russian horde would be able to sort of roll through the Fulda Gap the same way the Soviets went into Hungary in '56 and Czechoslovakia in '68. But I remember back then watching some videotape of video film of a Soviet soldier who was using foot wraps instead of socks, just like pieces of cloth that he was wrapping around his feet and shoving in his boots. And I thought, these people are so behind us, and that actually gave me a lot of confidence.
Yeah,
they're so behind us, they didn't even have socks to show that I could, we should be able to take them. If that ever happened. Thankfully, that never did. But I saw something recently, and it brought back up, and I think this is significant. A lot of people don't really realize this. I saw the Russians are still issuing, at least in some cases, still issuing foot wraps to their soldiers.
Wow.
And I said, an army that can't even provide socks for its troops is not an army that is, technically and strategically sophisticated enough to take on a world power like us.
And they've been, even for the conscription, I thought they were using old, Soviet standards on how many people they're supposed to draw from areas and how they're going to equip them and move them out. I mean, it just seems so dated.
I think they're doing whatever it takes. They don't have enough supplies. Don't have enough basic supplies. I'm sure you might have seen a video of the Russian soldier that was telling the new conscripts to get their girlfriends to provide them with sanitary napkins to use as bandages, if they're wounded on the battlefield.
Yeah, wow.
They simply don't have these basic supplies, and it's just, and which is why, in a head-to-head fighting against the Ukrainians, they're getting their clocks clean.
Yeah, I mean, just think about what that does for morale and
situation.
Any
victory they've been able to eke out has been strictly as a result of massive artillery bombardments. That's it. Yeah.
So what we were talking a little bit about this before we started. Where do you see this going now? You seem like you think it's going to be going on for a while. It's not going to be over anytime soon.
Right.
Obviously, the question of nuclear weapons, too. Are we facing Armageddon, like Biden told all of his donors?
Yeah, that was. I think they're trying to walk back that. Trying to walk that back.
Yeah.
They have. You can only walk it back to some extent. They are raising the. Medvedev has raised it. They are raising the issue that they will take all steps necessary to defend Mother Russia, which they now claim to be the four regions in Ukraine that they've. It's something people are thinking about more than they thought about in years, and that is concerning, obviously. It raised, if they were to use any kind of nuclear, even like a strategic kind of nuclear warhead, nuclear device,
or even like a demonstration, like they were talking about, like just blowing it up in the Black Sea or something.
They did that. I mean, all sort of, everything's on the table then, except, at least as are supplying Ukraine with. I think if that happened, I think we would start supplying with Ukraine with everything they want. And no, we've been sort of holding stuff back.
Mm-hmm. I mean, do you see some kind of like conventional response from NATO if they were to do that?
If not if it's only. I don't, anything is possible. I mean, the idea of trying to psychoanalyze or trying to predict Vladimir Putin is a dangerous, is a dangerous error. I think anything is possible. I doubt we would invoke Article 5, the NATO Article 5, unless there were a NATO country or country who was attacked.
Mm-hmm.
I think if it was restricted to Ukraine, I think we would take steps, but I think it will be short of us actually becoming active belligerents in the war. Although Russia considers us a belligerent now, I think we would open up the spigots to Ukraine and give them, and I think we would say, I would not be surprised. We would say that they now, if they want to attack into Russia. So, because Russia so far, Russia proper, has largely, been unscathed because we don't want them to attack Russia and, sort of expand the war. But I think if they were to drop if they were to, if the Kremlin was to use some nuclear device in Kremlin and in Ukraine, I think that we would say, go for it.
Well, scary times, Mike.
I think that is different than us actually, becoming an active belligerent in the war.
Sure.
But it would expand. There's no doubt it would expand dramatically.
All right. Well, yeah, that's all the time we have for today. But it's obviously a terrible situation here. But Mike, thanks for coming on. Really interesting to talk about this as always, and have you on again soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.